You are listening to the audio portion of the QB Power Hour webinar series. The QB Power Hour is a free bi-weekly webinar series for accounting professionals presented by Michelle Long and Dan DeLong, who are very passionate about the industry, QuickBooks, and apps that integrate with QuickBooks. You can find out all the details about the webinar series at qbpowerhour.com. So without further ado, here's Michelle and Dan.
Welcome everybody to another QB Power Hour. I'm very glad to have you all joining us today. And thank you. I know it's a busy time of the year for everybody, so I'm very glad to have you all joining us. Today's topic is very relevant for you all, especially as you're working on your year-end clients. We're going to talk about common mistakes and how to fix them. And Dan and I will be talking about both desktop and line. So thank you for joining us. My name is Michelle Long. I'm a CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success, thrilled to be a trainer for Intuit, a contract trainer for Intuit for many years, author of 5 different books. You can check those out on Amazon. Also, I'd encourage you to join us for on the Facebook group out there. You can see the link out there. I'd love to have you join us for that. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dan DeLong. I'm owner of Danwith, a former Intuit tech support for 18 years or so. And my motto is transforming businesses through technology, and that is what we're doing here today. And the cool part about what it is that we're doing here today is that, you know, because of the things that we do in QuickBooks, we can make quick work, and that's hopefully what we're going to take away today is some of the things that we can do that's a little faster than doing things manually, because some of the tools that are inside of QuickBooks. So upcoming events, we have some QB training events at the actually next week, next QB Power Hour, we're going to have creating batch transactions. So speaking of ways to make things happen faster, creating batch transactions inside of QB Desktop and QBO, and we're going to have a demo with our special guest from Transaction Pro Importers. So that's a great tool to add to your tool belt. There are the PDFs of the slides. There's recordings that you can check out online, as well as the podcast. So if you need to listen on the go. So we do have some upcoming events at the QB trainingevents.com. There's a VCon and Roadshow, so you can join into some of the boot camp virtual events there just by going to register at qbtrainingevents.com. So what's coming up for today, Michelle?
Today what we're going to be talking about is that company file cleanup, some of the common mistakes that people make in QuickBooks and how to fix them. So we're going to be talking about we'll talk about the overview that's available in QuickBooks Online that helps you to see things quickly and easily. But we'll talk about finding and fixing mistakes with undeposited funds, opening balance equity, accounts with negative balances, some other things to look for. And we're going to be talking about desktop and online and pointing out if and when there are differences between the two. So whichever product you're using, that's going to help you out. Let me go ahead and launch that poll question real quickly. Which one are you using? Are you using desktop, online, both, or NA? Maybe you're still a student and you're not really using either of those. We'll also talk about reviewing accounts for common problems. You know, Dan worked in tech support. How many years, Dan?
18, almost 18 years, almost made it to the 18-year threshold.
So you have seen a lot of mistakes. And I've been working with clients for a number of years, more than that. So he and I both have seen a lot of mistakes. So what we tried to do was pull out the most common mistakes that you're going to encounter, and we're going to talk about how to fix them. We'll also talk about how to fix a payment that's been received and deposited, but it was posted to the wrong customer. How do you fix that? Also then bank feed mistakes and how to fix some of those. So we got a good agenda for you all today. So I'm going to go ahead and give you about 10 more seconds to finish this poll question. Which one are you using, desktop, online, or both? And I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'll share the results so Dan and everyone can see. We got 59% of you are using both desktop and online, 28% QBO only, and 18% are still desktop only. So very good. Thank you all for answering that. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that. So first of all, let's talk about finding some of these mistakes and stuff. And one of the things that I just love that's new, relatively new, in the last, I don't know, 6 months, definitely within the last year, is this new overview in QuickBooks Online. It shows you at a glance some of these things that we need to take a look at. And so in the left navigation bar, you'll see it at the very top where it says Overview. When you click on that, there's 2 tabs, the Client Overview and Business Performance. That Business Performance is pretty cool. Intuit's doing a lot of really neat things there. But today we're going to talk about that Client Overview. And let me just go ahead and pop into QuickBooks and show you this. If I can pull my QuickBooks up, here we go. So when I go into the Overview tab, this is going to show me information on the company setup, which we aren't worried about right now, the banking activity, so you can look and see, are they way behind? Like this one has 168 transactions that have not been dealt with, and so people are behind. So you can see the status of the bank accounts as well as when it's been reconciled or if it's been reconciled. Then this is where we can find some of those common issues or common mistakes that we're talking about. Undeposited funds is a big one, and Dan and I both are going to talk about that here in just a second. Undeposited funds, we'll talk about that, but you've got a link right here that shows you how many you have. Now, 8, that's not that much. That could be legit. But if you open up that register and you see things going into undeposited funds and they're never coming back out, that's a pretty good indication that there's a problem. You can look for uncategorized assets, income, and expense. These are all things from the bank feed where they just hit add and they didn't post it to a real account. They just let it go in as uncategorized. So very quickly through QBO, you can click on that, go in and find those things and fix those. It also helps you here. The AR agings and the AP aging, you can see how old things are, if things need to be written off, things like that. Opening balance equity, that should be 0. Whether you're using desktop or online, it should be 0, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Then also the negative accounts, negative asset and liability accounts. We'll talk about that more a little bit later, but I really love this new overview that we have available in QuickBooks Online. So I wanted to make sure and share that with you. In QuickBooks Desktop, you need to run the balance sheet and go in and look at the balance for, let's say, undeposited funds and opening equity and things like that. So you'll want to double check some of those things. And I see people asking, how would you reconcile a clearing account, petty cash account, and a personal PayPal account? So the way that you would reconcile a clearing account, usually things are going in and out of there. And so you can reconcile that, and you put in, let's say, the year-end balance or year-end date, so 12/31, and a balance of 0. And you mark things off that have cleared. So let's talk about the undeposited funds, though, because this is a common mistake that we see in desktop and online. But what usually happens is the client maybe had an invoice and then they receive the payment, and the payment goes into undeposited funds. Then they might look in their check register and they say, well, gosh, I don't see that in there. How come it's not in there? And they enter a deposit and they post it to an income account, because it was income from a sale. So they enter a deposit, posting it to the income account. So what happened was, because they didn't do it correctly and go into the deposit window and select that payment that was sitting in undeposited funds, they just entered the deposit and put it directly to an income account. So that left the balance in undeposited funds, and it doubled up on our income account, because we had income on our invoice or the sales receipt, and we also have income now on the deposit because we posted directly to an income account. So the way that we can fix this, if it's just, let's say, 1 or 2 of these, is pull up that original bank deposit, check that payment that was received. So here we would put a check mark next to Cool Cars, then delete the line down here where they put it to sales of product income. So you have to do a little research and go find the deposits and figure out what they were doing out there. And so you see, oh, they posted it here when they should have just checked that payment that was received. So you delete this line and check that payment that was received. Now, Dan's going to show you in just a minute, in desktop, we actually have a tool that's going to help you to do this quickly and easily. It's one of the client data review tools. So Dan's going to share that with you in just a second. Now, what happens if you have a situation where you have way too many of these? I had a client one time where she knew something didn't seem right, and so she called me, and come to find out there was like $150,000 worth of stuff sitting in undeposited funds. She had all these really small amounts from credit card retail sales, and so they had all these transactions out there. thousands of them. So what you need to do in those situations, if you have lots of undeposited funds that you need to get cleared up, you cannot fix this by doing a journal entry to undeposited funds, because every time you come in to make a deposit, all of those payments sitting in undeposited funds are still going to pop up in the deposit window. So to get rid of it when you have a lot of them, and this is true for desktop and online, you do your research and you figure out what income account were they posting these things to. So in this example, we figured out they were posting those deposits directly into sales. So what you want to do is go through and choose all of those old payments. Now, in the situation I had, we had payments over a long period of time. So you might want to go back and group them by month or by year, depending on how many there are and for reporting purposes. So let's say you've got, several years of this, and you might want to just do it by year. Or if it's just the past year, you might want to do it monthly. So what you would do, go in there and select all the payments, let's say for that particular month. Then you look over here and you see, what's my total? So if the total of those payments for the month was $10,750, I'm going to put a line here to the income account that they were posting to, put that in as a negative amount because they posted. What happened is we received the payment and it went up here, it's sitting in undeposited funds, but then they entered a deposit and posted it directly to an income account, the sales account. So we need to take it back out of the sales account. So we have the total here and then the negative amount, so your total deposit is zero. Your checking account balance isn't off. And that's why this client for a long time didn't know something was going on, because they could reconcile the bank account. They only recorded that deposit one time. It was still sitting in undeposited funds. So when we do this, it will fix the overstatement in undeposited funds and the overstatement in that income account, and it does not change your checking account balance. So if everything's already been reconciled, everything is still reconciled, and you're not going to mess up your bank statement or your bank reconciliations or anything like that. So it's not going to cause any problems there. Don just asked that question. Hi, Don. Good to see you there. He asked if that's going to cause problems with the bank account reconciliation. No, except when you do reconcile, you will see a deposit of zero in the bank rec window. Just check it off as having cleared to get rid of that. Dan, did you want to pop in now and show them how it looks in that tool?
One thing I wanted to mention is that finding where they posted income to, because clients think money's coming in, that's income. No, they've already recognized that in their invoice as income. So the easiest way to find that is to run a custom or a transaction detail report. You can even do it on the general ledger report for just that account, but then you can sort it by type and look for deposits. So if you have a deposit posting directly into an income account, then that is typically the prime suspect of when you have this kind of situation. And then you can further take that report and break it down by month so that you get your totals in there if you need to. So I'm going to show my screen here. Now bear with me, I'm on a different computer, so this may be a little odd looking for me, and hopefully it's not too bad as far as the screen resolution is concerned. Are you able to see the screen?
I can see it. It is a bit small. Some people have asked, how can we get rid of the videos or the webcams? You can click on that bar and make the video feed, the webcam. You can make that much smaller or get rid of it totally so that you can see more of the screen.
Yeah, it's hard to tell when we're presenting what you're seeing. So thanks for the feedback there. So in QuickBooks Desktop, Accountant version or Enterprise, you're going to have the ability to access these accountant tools. If you're using Accountant version, you're going to see that from the Accountant dropdown. If you're not using an Accountant version, it's going to be available from the Company menu. Also, if you're logged in to your client as an external accountant, you'll also have access to these tools even with Pro or Premier. So these tools are great time savers because in this case, under Client Data Review, we have where did it go? I'm trying to find it now, and of course it's even smaller for me to see. But here we go. Whoops, we had it here a second ago. No. There it is. Clear up undeposited funds account. So same situation where you have payments being directly deposited or going to undeposited funds, and then you have a deposit that is going into sales. So if I drill in on that, we can see this is the deposit. It's for Christy Abercrombie. She had posted the interest income, so that's some kind of that's quite an income account there, but cancel out of that. And then there were two payments that made up that amount. So here on this tool, you're going to have the customers that QuickBooks is going to be able to determine from the deposits listed here. So you can go down through each customer, because you're going to need to be able to assign these together. You would just then choose the deposit and then choose the payments that made up that deposit. And then when you, I got some sidebars here. Then when you click on save, then it does that for you. Whoops, I got things in front of me that I can't see. Yeah, you would say yes to link them together, and then they're gone. So now if we went and we looked at that deposit, if I go back to, that was Christy. Let's see if I can find her payment here. That was last year. Here's those payments. And we can go into the history and find that deposit. We can now see that it's correctly going through undeposited funds here, as before it was posting directly to the income account. So whatever the payment is applied to, which would be the invoice, then that's going to have the correct posting of the income account there. So that's a really quick tool. I mean, a tool to fix these really quickly, especially when, like what Michelle was saying, where you have maybe far too many payments. The nice part about desktop is that those payments are on a different screen in QuickBooks Online. Anything that's posting to undeposited fund that's waiting to be deposited ends up taking up a lot of the screen, and then you tend to lose it. not lose it with your client, but you're losing where you can actually choose what account or what payments made up that particular deposit.
And Dan, could you show them once again where to access that tool? And we have one of these slides has a link where Dan and I talked about a lot of the tools and the accountant tools that are out under that client data review. But Dan, can you show that again?
Yeah, so under accountant and then under client data review, it's the third option here, clear up undeposited funds account. Like Michelle was saying, we do have a whole other webinar devoted specifically to the client data review, where you can access and all those tools that are in here, and they're really some of them are really neat time savers in the desktop version. But you can go into those individual tools right from that. So accountant's version is going to have this accountant menu, and then you go to client data review and then clear up undeposited funds. If you're in your client's directly logged into their version of QuickBooks and it's not the accountant's version, it's going to be under the company menu, and there'll be just an additional menu option here for accountant tools, and then it'll have that sub menu listed just like if you went to client data review.
And we have the question, where is it in QBO? And unfortunately, we only have a couple of those accountant tools in QBO that are in client data review. We don't have that tool. So that's why I've got these slides here to show you. I'm going to go ahead and take the control back, Dan, so I can show them. But you have these two slides here that shows you how to correct them one at a time or in batch. And on the in batch, where you're selecting a bunch of them at once, you can do that in desktop or in online. Either one of those will work. But you've got slides showing you how to fix that, but that tool in desktop is very helpful. Now, the other common mistake that we have is opening balance equity. OBE is a clearing account for us to use when we're first setting up QuickBooks and putting those beginning and opening balances in there. And so it should be zero. After the setup process, it should be zero. Some common mistakes are when a client or you, when anybody creates an account, a customer or a vendor or an inventory item, and it gives you the option to put in there the opening balance or the beginning balance. Do not do that. We should not use that field, and I wish Intuit would just get rid of that field, because what happens is if I set up an account with an opening balance, let's say it's a new company and a new business, and we've got a new bank account with $500. If I put $500 in as my opening balance, it's going to put that it'll put $500 in the bank account and $500 in opening balance equity, because it doesn't know what to do with the rest of it. So what you really need to do is delete that opening balance entry that was made for either a new account, customer, vendor, inventory item. And then what you need to do, if you've got your new account set up, you need to enter a transaction to post the deposit of that $500 to put it in there, or the balance for the customer or the vendor or that inventory item. So you should never enter something as an opening balance when you're setting up a new account, customer, vendor, or an item, inventory item. So that offset goes into OBE. The other thing that goes into opening balance equity, and this is true in desktop and online on all of this, is if you go in and you make it inactive / delete, because we know making inactive and delete is like the same thing. But if you have a balance sheet account or a customer or a vendor or an inventory item, if they have a balance when you make it inactive or / delete it, it says, okay, I have to write this off, and you didn't tell me where to write it off, so I'm going to put it to opening balance equity, OBE. So this is the common causes and reasons things get into opening balance equity. Now, I had a question out here that says, I have a client who posts some inventory adjustments to opening balance equity. How should I clean that up? So if they did a journal entry for inventory, never, ever, ever, ever should you have an inventory journal entry, because you can't post JEs to items, and that will cause problems and discrepancies between your inventory detail and your general ledger balance. So I would delete those and enter them as an inventory adjustment. There is a little place where you click to actually enter an inventory adjustment. If they actually use the inventory adjustment form, but they posted it to the opening equity account, then what I would do is edit that inventory adjustment and change it from opening balance equity to like inventory shrinkage or inventory adjustments or something like that to a cost of goods sold account. So there's a couple different ways that you can fix that. But so if they set it up with an opening balance entry, you would want to delete that entry that QuickBooks makes automatically posting it to opening balance equity. Delete that entry and enter the appropriate transaction for it, like the purchase of inventory. If it's a customer balance, you'd need to enter that invoice to get the balance in there for the customer. If it was something that was made inactive with a balance, then what you need to do is, let's say it's an account that they made inactive and it had a balance. Make it active again. Adjust the balance, write off the balance however you need to. If it's an account, you can probably do a journal entry. If it's in a customer accounts receivable balance, you probably need to do a credit to write that off. So you go ahead and make the adjustment. Then you can make that account or customer inactive again to clean that up. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a question here. So like when you link a bank account to QBO, whatever the start date of that of the download, it will automatically put a journal or an entry to opening balance equity. So this also falls in line with, okay, if I'm doing a start date as of 12/31/2001, where do you enter that in or recognize that line in the sand, opening balance equity to? If it's not to opening balance equity, where should it go to?
Yeah, so when you're setting that up in QuickBooks, when you set up that bank feed and it pulls in that opening balance for that bank, you need to delete that. Okay, we want to delete that balance that downloads from the bank. And if, so this is a really good point. You know, we talked about upcoming events. So tomorrow is Wednesday and Thursday, the 19th and the 20th. There is a VCon, a virtual conference. So you can sign up for that at qbtrainingevents.com. In Module 12 of the Advanced Certification Training, and you can take the Advanced Certification Training and get the materials even if you're not ready to work on that exam. But in the Advanced Training Materials, Module 12, where we talk about complex conversions, one section of that module includes how to set up beginning and opening balances. And it tells you how to go through and do your opening journal entry, enter all the open invoices, open payables, opening outstanding deposits and outstanding checks that you might have. It tells you how to enter all these beginning and opening balances and close out opening balance equity so that everything is correct and it's set up properly, and you've got your open receivables with your agings and everything. So Module 12 of that Advanced Certification Training, and again, that it's probably going to be on the Thursday, day 2 of that VCon, but they're doing core certification and advanced certification training in that virtual conference, and it's free. So I'd encourage you to check that out and go see that. And somebody says, can't you journal entry this to retained earnings? So there are some steps where you're doing journal entries for retained earnings as part of the setup process, because you want to make sure your opening balance sheet matches the ending balance sheet from whatever it was you're converting to. All of that is covered in depth in that advanced training materials. We could spend a half hour on that, but we don't have time. So I do want to point out here in that the overview in QBO, you can see you've got a link to where you can see opening balance equity at a glance, and you can click there to drill down into it. If you're using desktop, you're going to want to run the balance sheet, and down in the equity section, click on opening balance equity to go look and see where those transactions are coming from. Was it a new customer? Was it a new account? And find out what it was, and then you can fix those things. The other thing you want to look for is negative account balances where they shouldn't be negative. Let's say a savings account that has a negative balance, a credit card liability account that has a negative balance. So things that have a negative balance that really shouldn't be, it'll show us that at a glance in this overview here. However, in desktop, again, you're going to want to run your balance sheet, look through that for account balances that are negative when they shouldn't be. Now, in this example, you'll see this overview says, accumulated depreciation is negative. Well, is that really a mistake, or is that okay? Because accumulated depreciation is a contra asset account, and it should be negative, so that may be okay. But this is going to give you something to go in and look at and double check those balances. Again, we're looking for common mistakes that our clients can make, so you'll want to review that for desktop and online. The other thing that you'll want to do in desktop or online is to review some of the detail on your balance sheet account. So look at the account register, so go into your chart of accounts, and on the far right side, you'll see View Register. So you can look at the register, or you could run a detailed balance sheet. And what you want to do is look for things that are wrong. For example, undeposited funds. We talked about this already. If you see things going into undeposited funds, but never coming back out of undeposited funds, they're not doing it right. Fixed assets. Look through the fixed asset and accumulated depreciation. Has depreciation been entered for the year? Have assets been recorded during the year? Any purchases? Look for sales tax payable. A lot of clients, when it comes time to pay their sales tax, they don't know how to use the feature correctly, and they just write a check and they post it to sales tax expense or state tax expense. So if you look at sales tax payable, the balance may keep growing and growing, but there's never any payments coming out of it. Go look on the expense, and they probably have recorded those payments incorrectly. In desktop, one of your client data review tools is to find and fix sales taxes that were paid incorrectly. So you got a nice tool in CDR that will find and fix those sales tax payments. In QuickBooks Online, you're going to have to fix those yourself. It's not going to do it automatically.
Yeah.
Also,
one thing about I mean, sales tax in desktop is handled completely different than it is in online. So, really understanding the difference between the two and how those two are handled. Whereas, I mean, the major difference is QuickBooks Online handles everything through a sales tax payable account, and desktop will use items or group sales tax items or groups to manage the knowing how much is actually due at a certain period of time. So, um, you can't do the same thing in QuickBooks Online as you would do in desktop if you're doing both, since the majority of our audience today is doing both. So one, find one fix doesn't work as well as the other, but the same thing is gonna handle, when you're dealing specifically with sales tax payable, that the symptom is they wrote a check, either put it to a sales tax expense account, which
Yes.
is not, or they wrote a check to sales tax payable, which doesn't handle it the same way as a tax payment, because those are special transactions in QuickBooks.
Yes, yes, and that is a very common mistake. And also along the lines with sales tax payable, payroll taxes payable that are paid
Mm-hmm.
incorrectly is also a problem. And in the desktop CDR, client data review, there's something to find those payroll tax payments that are incorrect, but it won't fix them the way that it does for sales tax payable, unless that's been updated. Has it, Dan? I don't
No,
think so.
it's still the same.
Just find them.
Right. It'll find them,
Yeah.
identify them for you, so that you can at least find, corral the usual suspects, and then you'll be able to, manually make those changes. Much like you did with clearing out undeposited funds, you have a positive and negative and a $0 transaction. That's the same way to handle that.
Yes. Okay, and I went ahead and launched this poll question. What mistakes do you find most common? And I'm going to go ahead and close this poll question, and I'll share the results with you all. 14% of you OBE, 37% of you have undeposited funds errors, which is very, very common. 30% incorrect transaction entry like sales tax or payroll tax, 12% bank fee, and 7% other. Very good, thank you. And I bet you guys are knee deep in client mistakes right now, aren't you? And so another thing to look for is in the loan accounts. Like if let's say, have a car loan, what you'll find a lot of clients do is they'll post it to car expense. Those loan payments, they'll post to an expense account. So look in that loan account. If you don't see any payments, principal, on those loans, you'll want to, make sure you look for those on the expense side, because they probably posted them to an expense account. You also want to take the interest expense and tie that out, your loan balance, to the amortization schedule, so that you can allocate the principal and interest and things. Also, the credit card liability account. Sometimes they'll enter credit card purchases, but when they come to pay the credit card bill, they just write a check and they write it to credit card expense, again, posting it to an expense account. So looking in the registers or looking in this account activity, if you see things always going in and never coming back out, then you know you've got a problem. Another common problem with the credit card liability is if they reconcile that credit card account and they say enter a bill to pay it later. All they're doing is moving the balance into accounts payable, and if they're not paying it in full every month, that can become a real problem. Don't let them ever do that. I just don't ever use that enter a bill for payment later. It just causes more troubles than it's worth. So I just don't recommend that at all. Did you want to answer that, Dan?
Around the water cooler at Intuit, credit card accounts was probably, the complete spectrum of what you could potentially do. Sometimes when they get their statement, they just enter it in as a bill or straight as a check, or there's a variety of ways, and a lot of confusion about, well, this is an account, a credit card account, and then I've got a credit card vendor, and I've got a credit card transaction. So it's a lot of opportunity, I guess is a nice way to say it, to educate your client on the best practices and the way that QuickBooks is really designed to be using that.
Yes. Okay, now here's another example of something that can go wrong, and it can be kind of challenging to fix, is correcting a payment that was posted to the wrong customer. And I'm actually going to go in and demo this because it's much easier to explain if I can show it to you. So let me pop into QuickBooks. and I'm in Larry's Landscaping. And so what we had, I'm going to go over in my customer area here. So we had a situation where we had an invoice, we received the payment, and so when we received the payment, it was under a customer. Let's go to transactions. We received the payment, let's say of $500 in this example right here. It came in and we applied it to the invoice for a customer, but it really should have been applied to a new customer. So we had a payment come in, it was posted to the wrong customer, and it was deposited. So now when I try to fix it, I can't fix it. So I come out here and I've got this payment for $500 here. Let's see if this was the one. Okay, unapplied payment. So this one's not been applied to anything yet. Let's see, amount received. Yeah, this one's still open and not applied. Okay, so it was deposited. It must have been the other one. I set it up and now I can't remember which one I made wrong. So let's go in and look at a new customer and look at the transactions on it. And here's my invoice for $500.
And the reason that you have to do this, Michelle, is because you've already deposited it, right? If it hasn't been deposited, you can just go and change the name and make that all right. With the world. But because you've deposited it, QuickBooks won't allow you to modify a transaction that's already been deposited.
That's correct, and this will help me to find it, I hope. So here's the deposit. Okay, so this was the one that was wrong. Oh, I had two A customers. That's what's throwing me off. This one right here for $500. Let's say this one, it's $500. It shouldn't be a customer. It should be a new customer. Okay, so it was posted to the wrong customer. It's already been deposited, so it won't let me fix it. So let me open this in a new tab, and I can show you that. It's coming up here. And yeah, like Dan said, if it's not been deposited, it's not a problem. But if it's already been deposited and cleared and reconciled, we don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to show you how you can fix this without doing it. So here's this payment that was received. You can see here it was already deposited. So if I'm trying to change it to a new customer, is it going to let me? It is going to let me. It usually does not do that. Huh. Okay, surprise. Well, maybe it's surprise. I know. So it did not used to do that. I don't know if in desktop.
I noticed that it was $0 or something. Something changed in the transaction itself, or was that?
Okay. Well, here's the way you can fix it. What you want to do is uncheck it here. So you're taking it off of your deposit. But when I do that, I change the amount of my deposit, and I don't want to do that. So what you want to do is come down here in this bottom under Add Funds and use a miscellaneous income account and put in $500. This is just temporary so that the deposit total is not changing. So if it was cleared and reconciled, it's still going to be cleared and reconciled. So then I can save this. So let's do save and close. Now I could go in and edit that payment and fix it, and then I can come back in and add it back onto that deposit and remove that line. So let's go back under a customer, and let's go in and change it. Where's the $500? No, there's the invoice. Here's the payment, $500. This is a payment that was posted to the wrong one, and now I can fix it and post it to a new customer. And you're right, it changed it to 0. It unchecked these down here. So change it to the right invoice, click Save and Close. Now I want to go back to that deposit again, and I want to fix the deposit now. So I'm going back into my deposit, clicking up on my little clock to see previous and recent deposits. I pull it up. Now I'm going to choose a new customer up here. The $500 payment that was received should be, where is it? Oh, there it is, a customer. Down here then, I want to delete this line. So what you're doing, delete, there we go. We're not changing our total again, okay? So what we want to do is we want to add a little line down here so the deposit total doesn't change. Uncheck that deposit or that payment that was received up here. Go fix it, then come back in, check it off again, and delete this line down here. And that will allow you to change who it's deposited or who it's posted to, which customer it's posted to. And in the PowerPoint slides, in case I confused you, here's a link that shows you how to fix that. And this is actually an old recording, but it's the same principle, and that was shown in desktop. Dan, do you have anything you want to add there?
Well, another way that you could do that is then create, QuickBooks Online allows you to have two accounts receivables on the same transaction. So one way that without, this is the most thorough thing to do, right? You want to have it go to the right customer, but you could do a transfer of the balance from one customer to the other, but you didn't have to go, do that on one journal entry, have one customer's balance, and to move it from the incorrect to the right person, and then you can apply those two transactions together so that your aging reports are correct. In desktop, if you wanted to do it that way, you would have to do two transactions because you can't have a transfer of balance on the same transaction.
Very good. That's a very good point there. So here in QuickBooks Online, I can do accounts receivable 500 and 500 for a customer and a new customer, and I don't know if I've got this going the right way or not, but I could do a journal entry to do that if I wanted to as well. So that's a good call out there, Dan.
Although 2020 actually has the ability to transfer credits between one customer to another. So if you're on the latest version of desktop, you can do it as a one fell swoop.
Very good. That's a good point. I did not realize that. Okay, so that's something that happens, and it's sometimes very difficult to fix. And so now let's talk about the bank feed mistakes. And I'm going to go demo in here under banking. And this is where it's so cool. Let's say your clients tried to help you out, right? Don't we love it when they help us out? And also, while I'm showing you this, and we've got a couple more things to talk about, but if you have some specific questions, go ahead and type them in there. Dan and I are going to try to allow like the last 10 minutes for Q&A. So type in your specific questions in there too, and we'll try to help you. But let's say your client went through and added or matched a bunch of transactions and they did it wrong. The nice thing in QuickBooks Online is I can come in here under Reviewed and look at this. And if I can say, oh my gosh, all of these are wrong, I could come through here and check off all the ones that were wrong and just simply click undo. So I can do it in batch, or I could do just one transaction. So let me clear all these. Let's just say this one for this rule, for whatever reason, was wrong. I can click undo, and it will undo one of those. And what happens is when you click undo, it will either, if it was added, it will remove that transaction. If it was matched, it will unlink and unmatch, and it moves that back over to for review so that you can do whatever it is that you need to do with those things. So it's quick and easy to undo in QuickBooks Online on the bank feed. The trouble is finding those that are wrong. And one thing that's always nice is being able to see, what it was added to or matched to. Sometimes you have to follow it down to see which ones were matched. If there's duplicates or something, which one with payment was already matched to the invoice, and here's a payment that wasn't matched, and you delete that one instead of the one that's linked. So sometimes you got to do some searching to figure out which one to undo. But Dan, you can't undo things like that in desktop, right? Can you?
Yeah, still on the bank feeds in QuickBooks Desktop pale in comparison. I'll go on the record here to QBO just for this batch undo transaction. You can batch delete the transactions, if they came down or they were duplicated. But the batch undo, and again, that good call out there that you mentioned there is that it will undo the action that was taken when you reviewed the transaction. So if it matched, it will unmatch. So it doesn't delete the transaction that's still in the register, but if it added it, it will undo the transaction and pull it out completely. So that's great when you have an overzealous client that just went in and added a whole bunch of transactions and didn't match them to on any existing transactions that you painstakingly entered in for them, or needed to tie their invoices together with payments that were deposited, and they just deposited them to the sales account. So this will help you, when we're tying everything back to that undeposited funds account, you can just pull them back out and then rematch them as needed in the bank feeds.
Good tips there. Thank you, Dan. Okay, and somebody asked a question about how do you handle transfers in the bank feed. So when I'm in the bank feed, here you can see these online transfer savings. So you'll see this is a transfer that we have here. And you've got this little button here. It says record transfer. Now, uncategorized asset, that's not the right account that I would be using. So if it was a transfer, let's say from a bank account, in this example, it looked like it said a savings account, you would want to put savings account here. Where this becomes a problem a lot of times is when you're dealing with those credit card payments. What happens is sometimes people are entering the credit card payments twice. So what I recommend doing is when you pay the credit card, go ahead and enter that transaction in QuickBooks. So that way it's already in the bank account and the credit card liability account. So when the download when the clear transaction's downloaded, it's going to match those transactions and you're not going to get any duplicates. So a transfer is just between one balance sheet account and another balance sheet account. So it doesn't have to be a checking and a savings account or a checking and a payroll account. It could be checking and your credit card liability account. So, but you've just got that button there for a transfer. You don't have to use a transfer if you don't want to. You can simply do it as add, and you could still just choose the right account. So there's nothing magic about being a transfer except that a transfer can only be balance sheet accounts. But I could add this and simply have this as a savings account. I thought it was, I don't know why. I'm doing that wrong. I'm at savings right there. Sorry. It's hard to talk and type at the same time here.
Oh, I hear you.
But I could simply add that.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge I think when you use an add is that it depends on the bank, the financial institution's perspective, right? So if you're doing this on a bank account and this is a credit card payment, that's going to appear as a check in your register, which will also then appear as a check in the register of the credit card account. So when you have it even worse with if you choose the transfer and it's an increase to the account, that's going to show as a deposit. So that deposit then will show on the transferring account as well. So that causes confusion, and that's why you might want to use transfer as opposed to add, because then you have the transaction type, whether it's leaving or coming to the account, will show on the opposite way. So you have a decrease deposit on the other side of the account, which causes confusion, especially on your client side. It's like, how do I have this negative deposit in my account? It's like, well, that was a transfer. And they're making that a little bit more easier for people to understand with that new transaction of pay down credit card, because that then creates a transaction for you, which shows up as that type of transaction to make that a little easier to understand.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, one other thing that I want to talk about quick, and then we're going to finish up with some of these Q&A because there's several questions out there, but I wanted to make sure we reminded you to review your P&L accounts and stuff. We talked about reviewing your balance sheet accounts and looking for things that were posted incorrectly or not posted and things like that. We also want to review our profit and loss accounts, your income and expense accounts. This is where the Reclassify Transactions tool, it's available in both desktop and online. It's one of the client data review tools in desktop. So we want to batch reclassify things to the correct account. So when you find things that are posted wrong, you can select 5 of them, 10 of them, or 50 of them and reclassify them or move them to the right account with one click. So it's super easy. Or you can actually reclass a class, or you can assign a class. You cannot fix locations in here, only classes. Also, we can't use...
You actually can now. You can now. That was just.
We can do locations now.
Yes,
I apologize.
You can
it's hard to
classify locations.
It is hard to stay up with all this, and now we have tags coming.
Yeah, at least we weren't doing this webinar yesterday when QBO was down.
Oh, don't say that. You might jinx us. Okay. Now, what about items? You can't reclassify items. So if you've got items, I'm going to sneeze.
No, bless you.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. If you have items and you need to change the account mappings of your items, one of the things that I want to warn you about is so you can go back here under your items to change the account if you need to fix those things. So I'm going to go back under an item, into my items list here, and let's go down into some service item. Let's just find something. There was bookkeeping. That's a good one. So on this bookkeeping, let's say I want to change the account that is mapped to and where it's posting to. You can't change those in with the reclassify transactions tool. So if I come down here and say, okay, I don't want it to go, whoopsie, sorry, my phone just fell on my computer and messed it up. If I wanted to change it, instead of bookkeeping, let's say I wanted it to go to just service to this income account. Once I click and change in a different account, this is going to show. Also update this in historical transactions. So you can fix things right here by changing the account mappings. Be very careful because it says update this in historical transactions. It will do that for all historical transactions. It doesn't say update this for this year's transactions and leave prior years that are closed and tax returns filed. You know, it'll mess up your closed period. So be very careful. This is an all or nothing. You can help me by asking Intuit, by sending in feedback to make this also update this historical transactions as of this date. So as of January 1, 2020, I want you to fix it. I want you to leave all the prior years alone. So you can change the account mappings, but be very careful out here. This can and will change historical transactions. Okay?
And from my experience, a lot of people miss that checkbox because that doesn't show up until you change the account, because you have a drop down in front of that. You don't see that there was a change in the screen when you change the account. So just by looking at it, that checkbox isn't there, and then you go to change it. Now you have a drop down in front of it, and then your eyes immediately go down to the lower right to save your changes. You miss it completely in that checkbox, and then that causes a call to support. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
it's not changing.
Yeah, so you got to watch, because right there is where that will show up. So as you could see there, you didn't see it until I changed that. If I put it back to bookkeeping, it goes away because that's what it was. But as soon as I pick any other account, that box pops up there for you. So pay attention to that, because that's one of the things we do want to do at year end is to check the account mappings and make sure things are mapped to the proper account. And one of the things I always like to do, I want the little gear, the grid gear, is come in here and change so that I can see all the different accounts here. So you can see the income, the expense, and the cost of goods sold account, or the income, expense, and the inventory account as needed. So there was a previous webinar that we did on those accountant tools, including reclassified transactions. Here's the link where you can go in and find that you can watch that again. And then there was a great question out here. Somebody had a question about the client is paying for things on their personal credit card. So the client paid a supplier bill on their personal credit card, and the bill is on QBO. How do you enter payment? One of the things that I like to do for owners that we try to tell them keep business and personal separate, but they never do. I like to have a due to owner liability account. It's just like a credit card account, kind of like a revolving line of credit. So you can have a due to owner account. So in that situation, you can use the owner to pay that bill, and then you reimburse that owner using that due to owner account. And you could also set up a if the client's doing this a lot, set it up kind of like a credit card liability account where you can reconcile it if you want to zero it out every month and reimburse the owner or things like that. So use a due to owner account for some of those things, or you can use the owner's draws if it's a sole proprietor. But I usually like the due to owner to keep some of those things there and keep them separate. Dan, do you see any questions out here that you'd like to answer before I keep going on?
Yeah, there was one about the unapplied cash payment, and I think I'm trying to remember the webinar that we talked specifically about that. I think that was on reporting. It
was a report. Yes.
Yeah, and that technically should be a wash account, and that, so if you apply something, especially when the dates are askew and the report is inclusive and it's only a cash basis profit and loss, that you'll see that account being utilized. It's usually when you have a date issue between the payment and the invoice, where the payment is dated prior to the invoice that it's paying. So it will wash through that account only on a cash basis. So that account should be zero, and you will see potentially a payment and an invoice only if the date range of the profit and loss that you're looking at encompasses both the payment and the invoice. So that again, you probably want to look at the reporting tips that we webinar that we looked that we dived into that a little bit deeper. But that's the basic gist about unapplied cash payment and unapplied cash expense when you do see both of them.
Okay, and one of the things somebody asked about, I have a client that doesn't assign a payee, like the bank fees. Can you require them in the bank fees to assign a payee name? And you cannot require them to assign a payee name. However, when you're in your accountant or your client dashboard here, if you click on the client's name to go into the client detail page, so I'm going to go into the detail for Larry's Landscaping, and I click on bookkeeping, you're going to see bookkeeping alerts out here. Over here is where you would see if there's a transaction without a payee. Now, on that one, it didn't have it. Let's go into another one and see if we can find one. You will see an alert, though, on transactions without a payee name, and you can click on that so that you can go down to those specific transactions to follow up with that. But part of that is just client training and training your clients to do that. Oh, I went into the client. I meant to go into the client detail.
And also while you're going back to the right place, the new efficiency score that's supposed to be coming out with QBOA that we're talking about at QB Connect will give you access points to that, and that's part of the efficiency of doing things automatically. So when you do have a payee, transactions without a payee could cause issues, and that's where you can then access those things to be able to speak to your client about that, or work with your client to make sure that those things get entered. Venmo is another one of those things that is just horrible.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you enough information to tell what it is, and then it's money coming in and out, and then you gotta sit down, and it's a real time sucker.
Yes, yeah, and I'm not seeing any of those, but right now it would show up right over here as missing a payee name, and you click on that review now, and it will show you what that is. Another question that we had was using receipts. Should we enter them first and create the expense, or wait until they come through the bank feed? What I recommend is when you're working with purchases, so credit cards, usually they're using a credit card, or it could be a debit card. I usually like to teach them to take a picture of it. So if you go into the receipt area, you can actually use the receipt function within QuickBooks, or use that mobile app to capture that receipt. So go ahead and use that tool that we have available to us, or let them come through the downloaded transaction and set up rules for those credit card purchases, because a lot of times they're buying stuff from the same places over and over again. You can set up rules. I would not enter those transactions individually. If they're doing, like, let's say accounts payable, where they're entering bills and they're paying bills, then those things are going to be entered in QuickBooks first, and then they'll match the bank feed when it comes through. But this new receipt capture that's available in QuickBooks, you can teach your clients to take a picture, so they've got their phone with them all the time. They can pull this up and use the QBO mobile app, which is included with the subscription. They can take a picture of that receipt, and it's going to have that, and it can enter that, and you'll see all of that down there. And then that way you've got things in QuickBooks that can match the transactions when they come through the bank feed. And these are all things, if you haven't learned a lot about bank feeds and things like that, I really encourage you to attend the VCon tomorrow and Thursday, because they're going to have training and talk to you a lot more in depth about some of this stuff. We are almost out of time, Dan. Another question that you wanted to answer for someone?
Yeah, just some people were, asking some things about things that we had already discussed. So if you do need to go to and review some of the things that we've done in prior, so like we talked about the business, I can't remember now what it's called, but the tool that's coming out in QBOA to be able to enhance the dashboard and the efficiency score. That's what I was. We talked about that in a QB Connect follow-up. If you go to qbpowerhour.com under archived webinars, you can click on there's a whole list of pre-recorded. There's also Michelle's YouTube channel where we've done a lot of them in the past. But in the GoToWebinar here allows us to be able to put them on the GoToWebinar staging area that is called, and you can go in there and find, and we'll put the featured ones. Usually the last few ones are featured ones, and you can review those as well. And it also allows us to do chat or the transcripts of the webinars as well. So you can look at the transcripts, do a Control F on your computer, find the term that you're looking for, and then that'll give you the idea of where it is in the video as well.
Very good. And then a couple of other things that I wanted to do. This is a really good tip. So somebody had a question about adding payees for random transactions can clutter the vendor list. Is it still best practice to have a payee for every transaction? So what I like to do in that situation, so for example, if you have a client that has lots of gas, let's say they're buying gas from Shell and from Mobil and from BP gas and Wawa and wherever else they're buying gas, what I like to do is set the vendor name up as gas station, and then in the bank feed with their credit card, I'll set up a rule that says if the payee name is Mobil or Shell or BP or whatever, you can do 5 of them, then post it to gas station. And you want to make sure that it copies the bank description onto that transaction. You can do that in the banking area under the rules. You can tell it to do that. So if I click on the bank area, see where it says show bank details? Copy bank detail to the memo. So under the bank feed, click on this little baby gear down here, copy bank detail to the memo, and that way it's going to put it there, and that way you can set up a rule that says post this to gas station, post this to restaurants, post this to hotels, because you're right, we don't want our vendor list to be too long, so you can use a generic vendor name in those situations and set up bank rules, and that's going to help you manage that vendor list so it doesn't get unwieldy. Dan, any last comments? Because I see we are out of time. I can hang around a few more minutes.
Yep.
Those of you that need to get off, let me just remind you, right here is where you can go to qbtrainingevents.com and register for the VCon. I will be in the chat area helping answer questions. And so the VCon's going on tomorrow and Thursday. You can attend all the sessions and get free CPE. You can attend just the sessions you want to. You can get certified. You can attend the advanced training to learn more about that stuff, even if you're not ready for the exam. So go to qbtrainingevents.com. Don't forget to join us on March 3rd for creating batch transactions. We're going to have Transaction Pro Importer, and this is huge time saver for some of us. So we really would like you to join us for that. So those of you that have to go, thank you very much. Dan, any other comments or questions that you wanted to cover quick?
Oh, no, the one thing that we kind of glossed over a little bit was the rules, the bank feed rules. That's going to be, if you can manage the rules for you and your clients, and you can export rules and use them across clients, you can help your clients and yourself, manage these transactions, put them into a particular account when they're unrecognized and things of that nature, so that it helps you and your clients get comfortable working together. And the rules themselves are going to allow you to take a lot of the guesswork out of those transactions as they come in. And where do they go? I just love the look on a client's face when you get them working in the bank feed with the rules, and they just go click, click, I'm done. All right, let's move on to something that's more important. Yes,
and that's where you save yourself and your clients significant amounts of time when you take the time to go in and set up these bank rules. And now here's another tip for you before we end here. Those of you that have shoebox clients that are coming to you and they say, I want you to do my taxes, and they haven't done anything all year. This is where you'll want to go to the bank or the credit card accounts. You download all those transactions for the last 12, 13, 14 months. When you import all those into QuickBooks Online, those are all going to be sitting under banking. And when you set up those rules, so if I set up a rule, let's say for the rent every month, or for the utility bills, or things like that, it's going to apply that rule to all 12 or 14 months of activity that you have there. And now that rule's set up moving forward. So you can process a whole year of activity in a fraction of the time. That's why we want to do value pricing. But set these rules up out there. And again, you can learn more about this under the certification training for core certification or the advanced certification. You can go out and play with it in that sample company and set up rules out there as well, so that you can kind of get more familiar with it. But those are huge, huge time savers. Okay, anything else, Dan?
No, I think we do have some questions about the the receipt capture, and how that works. We probably should maybe go into do that on a future QB Power Hour webinar and really drill down how this feature actually works.
That's a great idea. Why don't we do that? Maybe the one after the first week of March, we'll do that the next one. Yes, Mary says yes, please do.
Okay.
We will do that.
Yeah, and you can go into qbpowerhour.com and suggest, give us a suggestion of what it is that you want to see, drilled out here, so that we can, make this as educational for you, and sometimes it is for us too.
Yes.
Sometimes we learn something on the webinar.
Yeah, and Deborah wants to know, is there a VCon for advanced recertification? I am not positive if the recertification is in this VCon or not. Go out to QB training events and double check. I'm not sure if they have the recertification going on or not. So you can go check that out. And they do always have webinars ongoing throughout the month if you're looking for the recertification as well. So qbtrainingevents.com. And Danielle says, along with receipt capture, more training on bank rules. All right, we will do one on all of that stuff.
Right, we'll probably just spend a whole time on the bank feed in QBO and what we can do.
Yes.
There.
That's always helpful for people. So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Dan, again for being here and filling in and helping out and being a part of QB Power Hour. We couldn't do it without you.
Thanks. It was great to see you again. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the QB Power Hour podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in our Facebook group. You can find those resources and much more at qbpowerhour.com.